Good morning, everybody. This is Tuesday, November 7th. Today, for your notes, I have 5 examples for you, and then you will have a worksheet, numbers 1 through 7, that you will do for homework. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through these 5 problems. We're going to practice some more substitution and go from there. So, hopefully you guys finished your worksheet 1 to 10 and 1 to 6 last night for homework. Your key was posted for you on Classroom, so we're just going to go ahead and dive in today. So here's our first example. Give you a second to write it down here. And when I'm looking at this, it looks kind of like a mess to me. I got cosecants, I got cotangents, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change all of those into sines and cosines. Okay, looks something like that. Now I'm going to try and get those fractions out of the fraction, so I'm going to multiply the whole thing by that. And now it looks something like that. And now I'm supposed to be plugging in 0. Well, if I look at this, I no longer have any issue plugging in 0. At the beginning, if I were to look to plug in 0, I could not put in 0 in that part right there. It would have a 0 on the bottom. It would be undefined. Okay, because cosecant is the inverse of sine, so it would be 1 over sine. The sine at 0 is 0, so that'd be 1 over 0. So that's why I couldn't plug it in right away. But now we've manipulated this so that it's okay to plug in 0. And when you do that, that's what the numerator looks like. This is what the denominator looks like. And it gives you a final answer of -3/7. So just a little manipulating there will eliminate the domain error. All right, number 2. First thing I need you to notice is that the squared is here on the angle. It is not on the sine like that. It is on the angle. So just something to note. So I cannot plug in 0. Looks like I'm going to do a little bit of substitution here. I'm going to say that. And it also looks like I'm going to need to solve for x squared down here. So x squared will be that as well. Okay, so we have that. So now my new limit looks like this. That right there gives me 1. So really, I have this, which gives me a final answer of 6. Number 3 looks to be the same type of problem. Again, notice that the squared is on the angle, not on the trig function. Looks like that. Again, I'm going to have to solve for x squared because I got that x squared in the bottom. And it looks like this. And after the substitution, I have something that looks like that. This portion right here is 1. So now I have something that looks like this. And when you simplify that and multiply by the reciprocal, you're going to get a final answer of 8/5. So hopefully by now the substitution thing is going okay for you guys. All right, number 4. This time I need you to notice that the squared is actually on the trig function. Okay, so when I do my substitution, I just need to make y equal 6x. Notice that I do still have an x squared down here. So I can only isolate the x to look like that. But I'm going to need to take into account that it's going to need to be squared when I do my substitution. So what does it look like now? I have sine squared of y. On the bottom, I still have that 3. But then when I plug this in, that's x squared. So I need to make sure that I square that substitution. So now what does this look like? This will be 3 times y squared over 36. Notice, basically, I just have 2 of those identities. So basically, it's like sine y over y times sine y over y. There's 2 of them. Well, that would just be 1 times 1, which still just gives me 1. So now it looks something like that. Well, if you multiply by the reciprocal, you're going to get a final answer of 12. Again, let me stress to you that this portion right here, because they are both squared, basically just looks like that, and that is 1 times 1, which still gives me 1. Okay, last example here before we get going on your worksheet. All right, so this time we have cosine. Notice the squared is on the trig function, so if I'm going to do my substitution, I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to solve for x, and it looks like that. Okay, now that I have this up top, that's the difference of perfect squares. So there's my numerator. My denominator looks like that. Well, this is one of those special trig limits. And remember, that's 0. So if that's 0, basically the whole thing is 0. And that would be my final answer. Okay, so those are your 5 examples for today. A little bit of practice on substitution. Your worksheet is that. I will post the key online. Again, I suggest that you really try and do that on your own and use the key only if you need it. Have a good day, folks.